Welcome to the Green Tea Bakery. I'm your host, Christine, and in this Greenlight Path series, I interview entrepreneurs, creatives, and overall ambitious people about their dreams and goals, to then interview them again in 3 years and see the progress. Stay tuned to see the journey unfold. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Green Tea Bakery. I'm your host, Christine, and today I'm here with two amazing women who quit their job in tech and private equity to build a yogurt company, Beny Yogurt, to improve all of our gut health. So welcome, Kiki and Elan.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to talk to you, hear your story. And yeah, so let's just get started by a little warm-up question. What is something that brought you joy today particularly?
I am iterating on a new recipe for Beny, and I tried it today and had like a Beny breakfast bowl, and it was really good. So that made me really happy that it was really good. I was like jumping up and down.
I love that. I met with a coffee shop owner down in the East Village on the other side of Lower Manhattan, just like a mile away from me. And she started a coffee shop with her husband 17 years ago. And now they're sort of a local neighborhood staple, and talked to her a lot about what it means to be in partnership with a good friend. For her, it's her life partner, and how to really build a business here in New York in the food industry. So that was really heartening and warm to have a mentor in that space.
I love that. That's both beautiful. I'm excited to hear more about the yogurt new recipe, and also very great to have people who are in similar path and I guess been there for 17 years. But to get into your stories, what is some context from your early life that you feel like defines you the most today? The earliest memory or something growing up that you were like, this has really shaped the way I am today.
I can go first. So I am born and raised in New York City. And I think part of going through that means that the city was just like a big playground. And one of the things that my parents sort of set up for me and my siblings was this like idea of being raised by a village, which in some ways seems kind of hard to do in New York since it's so big and there's so many people. But in other ways, it was really easy because we could just walk 2 blocks and be dropped off with different sorts of people. And so from a very young age, I got the chance to be exposed to people of all sectors, of all industries, of all ages, and really felt like I was exposed to and raised by a village. And now that I live in New York again in my adult life, like I can walk down the street and run into like 10 people I know who like all I refer to as my aunt and uncles, even though we're not blood related. And I think this like idea of building community and relying on your community as if they're family has been something that's like through and through, and something that Kiki and I are definitely doing as we think about Beny in terms of like how do we enact and enable and activate our entire New York City community when building this product.
I love that. The entire city being your home and family.
Being your backyard and community, which speaking of, for me, I think it was really my backyard was a huge part of my upbringing. I grew up in a small town in Northern California, and we were lucky enough to have sort of 1 acre in our backyard in the middle of town, small town, but in a small town, where my dad planted a ton of different produce. And so we were we never bought fruit from the store. We had peach trees, tomatoes, made sure it was fully seasonal too. And he would layer all the different peach varietals. So we would get peaches as early as May all the way through the end of September. And similarly with all different types of produce. And so that was a huge thing, was spending my weekends and spending my time helping him in the garden. And then on the flip side, my mom is Chinese, and cooking and food has been a big part of her upbringing. And so using all of the produce that we grew ourselves into these more, traditional, not even traditional, but just Asian flavors, Chinese dishes, and cooking with her most meals too, and really being her sous chef. So I think the sort of blend of actually working with my hands in the backyard, seeing where my food came from, and then the delicious tastiness of working in the kitchen too.
I love this. Yes, connection with the environment, but also people. So kind of both of you had a little bit different, but still kind of similar upbringing in that way. So what was your dream as a child? I mean, I don't know if you always dreamed of one day starting a yogurt company or something else. What was it for you as a child?
Yeah, I can start. I've always wanted to be a teacher. Like that has always been my dream since I was really young. In 3rd grade, I have a little ornament that is my headshot in 3rd grade saying, like, when I grow up, I want to be a teacher. And I think that Teacher takes many forms, is how I'll say it now. But I was always drawn to the idea of being able to impact people in that way and the community driven part of it. Like teachers were my role models when I was growing up. I thought that they were the most incredible people and so smart and knew everything and also taught me everything I've known. And so that I think being able to impact someone in that way, even from a young age, I really saw the importance of that and wanting to do that for other people.
On my end, I always wanted to do something in food from a young age. I remember like when I was super young and learned how to use a computer, sitting down at my computer and being like, how much does a nutritionist make for salary? And then I was like, oh, not that much. I was like kind of disappointed, but I like really wanted to do something related to food. And I knew that like restaurants was maybe not the best business, but like maybe I could do something in nutrition. As I aged and grew up, I realized that like for financially, generally speaking, food is not the best business to go into, even though it can be very passionate and exciting. So that evolved. But as a little kid, I was definitely like, I want to do something in food.
Honestly, I can relate to that so much. Like Googling how many different professions every time I had a new hobby or new interest, just looking
Yeah.
up how much would people potentially make doing
Yeah.
this. But it's actually very interesting that you're saying, like food is not such a big business to go into because I feel like we live in a world where it feels like, everyone is, if they're starting a startup, it's something tech related. So I find it really beautiful to see that actually a lot of people who I recently talked to are doing something food related. I mean, also you too. So I feel like we'll also get into this, but very, very interesting to see how that narrative is changing. And actually there's a very big, exciting market for that as well. But to move on, where did your passion for yogurt come from? And gut health, I feel like it's also such a integral component of why you're doing Beny. So where did it come from? Were you always into, I guess you were always into food, Elan, you said, but how did that come together?
Yeah, totally. So we kind of came into this space more through the lens of the microbiome and gut health than through like yogurt as a food item. And how it all started a couple years ago, I fell down the rabbit hole of the microbiome and gut health. I think for all passions and obsessions, it starts with a personal buy-in and a personal issue. So for me, I had like personal gut health issues. And of course, that sent me down this rabbit hole of what's going on with my body? How can I understand this? How can I heal my gut? I was having like very classic American symptoms of bloating and brain fog and chronic inflammation. And I just really want to understand like how to heal this. And when I learned more about it, I learned that the best way to heal your gut is by taking probiotics, ideally from foods that naturally have it in them, because it's a lot more bioavailable. And of course, it's a lot more affordable than spending hundreds of dollars on supplements. And so I was like, great, I love yogurt. Like, I eat yogurt every day. It's a fermented food. Like, this will be great. It'll be easy for me. But when I actually started doing research about yogurt and understanding what went into yogurt and how it's made, I realized that most yogurts on the shelf that we can buy actually aren't really probiotic. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one is that yogurt is often pasteurized after they ferment it, which is really great for extending the shelf life of the product, but it also kills all the bacteria, the good and the bad. Number two is that yogurt's made with bacteria that's really good for making yummy yogurt, but not necessarily really good for your gut. And number three is that even the yogurts that do have some added probiotics in them, they generally speaking don't tend to have enough to actually make a dent on your gut. So your gut has 100 trillion bacteria in it. Even if a yogurt said, hey, we have millions of bacteria, that's just like a drop in the ocean. Even if you ate yogurt every day, you're not really going to make an impact. So what I did was I started taking these probiotics that had really incredible benefits for my gut and generally everyone's guts. And I fermented that into a yogurt so that now I can eat this food that I already wanted to eat every single day and have it be this incredible benefit for my gut. And the whole premise of Beny is like, how do we get the gut health properties and benefits that we need just by eating the foods we wanted to eat anyways? There are a lot of really awesome products that are, a scoop of green powder or, a little bar or jelly that you can take to get these sort of benefits. But Kiki and I love food and we love eating food and we want the things that we eat to also taste really good and just be a part of our regular habit. So that's kind of the goal of what we're trying to do at Beny.
Amazing. I love this to just, eat what you eat and just intuitively enjoy your food while knowing that this is actually creating a very great impact for for your gut. Then also my next question is, you both went to Stanford together. I assume that's where you met, but I wanted to ask you first, Kiki, how did you get into biology? How did you get into studying what you did? And what was your time like at Stanford?
Well, first of all, I loved Stanford. I think it is a fantastic place. I feel so lucky to have been given the opportunity to go there. I studied human biology for not like for good reasons, and also for young. I was 18 and I had to choose my major when I arrived. But I did know that I came from a background of agriculture. I was born in a small town in sort of the wine country area, and all my summer jobs were working in vineyards. My dad grew up on a dairy farm, and so I was very much interested in the connection between agriculture, food, environment, like the environmental health and the human health of our systems. And so I wanted to study that in a different and more rigorous way. And at Stanford, human biology is not just normal biology. It actually you study the literal human biology, right? So like you think cellular biology, you think evolutionary biology, anatomy, physiology, but then at the same time, you're also studying about our human healthcare system, human nutrition. You're looking at anthropology, like medical anthropology, and so developmental psychology. So you get these two tracks of what it means to be a human, both on the scientific level, but then also on the societal and experience level of culture and how we go about the world and healthcare and economics and those things. And so I was really drawn to the dynamicness of this major and how you could sort of dip into both worlds. In addition to, if you go back to the root of me wanting to be a teacher, it's not about the teacher. I think it's about the impact that it gets to create. And so choosing a field of study where ultimately I think there's two things that matter in this world, and it's human health and planetary health. And I wanted to be able to put myself towards actually understanding and furthering that in some way.
I love that. I think honestly, whenever we choose our majors, I feel like there are a lot of different ways we can go to. So I think it's beautiful that you knew at least I care about people I care about.
Totally. And what am I going to spend all my days going to class studying? Like, I just want to do something that feels interesting. And ultimately, Stanford doesn't have pre-professional majors, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I just think that Stanford, it's lucky that Stanford also like carries a name in itself too. So it does matter what my major is, but it was also for me to just choose what I wanted to spend my education on. Yeah.
How did you two meet? And did you know right away from the moment when you met that you're gonna be doing a project together, like building a company together, or how was that process?
No, I guess I'll first say it was never our goal necessarily to become founders. Like that was never like, hey, in my life, I'm going to be a founder. Maybe if there was something that we were really passionate about, we would be a founder, but maybe not. And so I think that's like, just wanted to frame that of like, we weren't like at the outset, like, let's see every opportunity to start a company. That's not what we were. We met when we were in junior year. We took a food systems class together with a professor named Christopher Gardner. He was my advisor at Stanford. And we met just over this. She was a computer science major. And so she had nothing, it was not at all related to her major, but just in her interests of the food system. And so we met. Elan, I'll speak for her in this moment, but she's always trying to optimize her health, how she can be better in this way, how she can biohack this thing. And so I distinctly remember she was on a bulletproof coffee sort of trend during that class. And we really became friends over that. I was so curious. This person is crazy. She's always like tweaking this one part of her diet or one part of her routine and seeing what the outcome will be, almost running science experiments on herself. And so I thought that was really fascinating. And we became really good friends. And it was just that. It was friendship. And we've always challenged each other in different ways on how to be better in our lives, in our relationships, in our decisions, in our careers. And we ended up living together after graduating in San Francisco. And that was a really fun time. It was bizarre because it was COVID, but also fun because we got to sort of bring our community under our roof, our small community there. And so, it was never on the outset that we were going to start a company together. But once we did really start thinking about what was next for us, it was pretty clear that there's no other person that I would want to do this with. Like, we challenge each other in a really good way. We complement each other in a really good way. And we have a lot of fun doing it. So why not actually just embark on this journey?
That is really beautiful. And I love how I think also living with people during COVID bonds you so much because you really get to know the person. And I think really getting to know this, yes, actually like this is such a good match for something future we can do together. That's really beautiful. But Elan, I wanted to ask you also, how did you get into computer science? Because that's what you also studied, right? And as Kiki said, you were always into like doing science experiments on yourself. Is there a correlation between both of those, computer science and doing those science tests on yourself, or how those interests came about for you?
The way I fell into computer science, I actually, when I started at Stanford, thought that I was going to do something in business or finance or something like that. But a lot of people were taking kind of intro to computer science class, and I was like, oh, I'll just take it and see what it's like. And when I took this class fall of freshman year, I had this realization that was like, wait, I'm having so much fun doing my homework. And like, when do you ever have fun doing schoolwork? Like, it can be interesting and intellectually challenging, but like, I just remember like completing this assignment where, you had to create this program and have it run, and just like jumping out of my chair, so happy that I got it to work and like so excited. And I was like, okay, if I'm this excited about what I'm doing, like maybe this should be something that I focus on and align my Stanford education with. And from there, I just kind of continued with it, and it was incredible. I ended up working at a tech company right after graduating for 4.5 years, same amount of time as Kiki in her private equity company, and it was a ton of fun. The intersection with health. So I was also an athlete at Stanford. I was on the rowing team, and so just like health and fitness, and I'd played sports my entire life. Like this whole sort of through line of like how do you optimize and feel your best every day from a fitness and food nutrition perspective was always really top of mind for me. And I loved running and still do really love running these like N of one experiments where you are your own test subject and you can kind of have every single day the clock resets for you to experiment and learn something new about your body and how you feel. And I've just always been really fascinated in doing that and knowing that about myself. It's been really cool to go through stuff, especially with Beny, where something like the microbiome and gut pretty much affects every single person. I think living in modern society, especially in America, I don't know too much about the microbiomes of people in Mexico, but at least in America, like our society and lifestyle make it really, really difficult for you to have a healthy gut. And so if there are little things that we can do to help positively impact the health of people through Beny, that's really, really exciting for us.
Mm-hmm. It's almost as going a step back to more pure, more whole, more natural products that, as Kiki was also saying, like, your backyard garden in a way to actually support this versus a lot of high processed food. Wonderful. Really love that.
Exactly.
So how do you function as a team? As Kiki already mentioned a little bit, that you really perfectly complement each other. So who is bringing what energy, skills, different parts to this equation?
Do you want to take that, Kiki?
I mean, I already sort of answered it, so why don't you take it and then I can fill it in.
I think the way Kiki and I see CPG or consumer products companies, the way they can kind of succeed is two areas. One is execution and logistics. So can you actually create a product that scales, that tastes good, deal with supply chain management, like do that whole thing in factories? And then two is marketing and distribution, which is like, can you get it in front of people and are they going to be excited about trying it? And so that's at a really, really 30,000 foot view, how we're dividing responsibilities right now is I'm really focused on product and getting this product to market. And Kiki's just like crushing it on marketing and distribution and making sure that everyone in New York City knows about Beny. As time evolves, I think we'll both be dipping our toes into both sides and we'll always be able to do that. But at a high level, that's sort of how we're dividing labor.
Yeah. And then I would say personality wise, you know what? I actually was worried at first that we were going to be too similar. Like we get along well because we're similar, right? It's not because we're opposites attract. Like that's for real. And so I was a little bit worried, but I think that that's actually not a problem at all. Like I think that we both are very extroverted and quite social people, and that has proven to be really highly valued in this industry. And actually probably in any industry, but dropping into a new industry where we know nothing and we're building a network and building relationships has been critical to our learning. That has been really, really important. In addition to, I think, both of us being very straightforward and clear communicators with one another, like there's nothing that Elan would say that would offend me. I just take it as feedback and okay, we implement it and we go from there. And I think that's been a very critical part of our relationship is ensuring that we're not tiptoeing around each other. That's not a whole thing here. It's just like we're both trying to make this work, and what that means is if we disagree, we disagree, or if we ultimately we trust each other's judgment, but there are going to be small decisions that we have different opinions on. And so being able to have healthy disagreement and sort of argue about things in a productive way has been really
The
important
other
too.
thing I'll add to that is that like it's a
Mm-hmm.
huge benefit working with your best friend that you can give super direct feedback and have these like very thoughtful arguments, so to speak, because we have a ton of love for each other. So like he can be really far to be like, Alon, like that TikTok you made like is really bad. We can't post it. And like I'm like she has my best interest in mind and the best interest of Beny in mind. Versus if I didn't know Kiki and I only knew her as my co-founder, saying something like that I might take like a little bit of offense to. But because she's also my best friend, like we can just give each other really, really candid feedback and it doesn't affect our relationship.
Mm-hmm. I think that's super important. Probably one of the most important parts. Just yeah, being able to communicate and know that you actually care for each other. So all those things, everything is figure outable. It's okay. You'll get through every point of this. Okay, my next question would be that both of you had very like picture book perfect traditional, career path like you, Elan, in tech, you, Kiki, in private equity. Was that difficult to quit and do this? And how was that very big shift for you?
Yeah. Like the short answer is yes, it was definitely difficult. I think the shift, so many things. I think that for me, it's like I have my whole life been on this ladder of, being successful, what it means to be successful at the next phase, what the right job is that is successful, what the right next thing is. And then really being able to shift the mindset of actually, that doesn't matter anymore, nor has that ever mattered. I think success is really being able to design the life you want to live. And that I think being able to shift my mindset into that and thinking, yeah, maybe I won't make as much money or I won't have the secure path or whatever it might be. But that's not the life that I want for myself, anyways. So I think being able to shift that was very important. The second was like, I realized part of that living the life I wanted to live was like firing on all cylinders. And I actually was just thinking about it. I'm like, I'm so absorbed in my days now because there's so many things that are demanding my attention and that are critically important for making Beny successful. And I didn't feel like that before. Like I felt like there was sort of one narrow avenue, and now it's every single part of my brain needs to be firing on all cylinders. And that was a
Mm-hmm.
feeling that I really wanted. And so it was worth taking that risk right now when I'm 26 and I have time and I only have myself to take care of and I only have my own rent and my own groceries. And so it felt like if I want that experience and that feeling, there's no better time than right now to jump ship and do something different.
For sure, switching perspective from what feels like the next successful step to what really aligns with you. And honestly, the way you're doing it, I'm sure this is also really quickly going to be a very fulfilling, huge, beautiful thing. But
Thank you.
Elan, what about you?
Yeah, when I was thinking about what sort of I wanted to do next after being in tech as a PM, one of the things that was really, really important to me was working on a product that I'm an actual user of. And there's a couple reasons for that. I was a product manager, and I think as a PM, you really have to know the inside and out of your product. And I felt like one, I'll be way more excited about working on it if it's something that I get to use every day and that it affects me. And two, I'll be way better at my job if I do, because now I can, wake up in the middle of the night and think about ways to improve it in a way where if I wasn't a user of the product, that wouldn't occur. And I think the other thing that has been almost underrated in working on Beny is that Kiki and I can walk into a room and tell people what we're building, and 95% of that room can actually use Beny and try Beny and has like some sort of excitement around it. And before, like I was doing B2B SaaS, there was like virtually no one in the room that had a use case for what I was doing. And that doesn't mean that it won't provide a ton of value for the people that do, but it's just like, large amount of value for few people or small amount of value for a ton of people. And it's been really, really fun to just like have this product that my grandma and like this elementary school kid can both understand and try, and feels really tangible.
Honestly, yes. And in a way, you're also developing features of your product. But now, it's like different flavors and the bacteria and everything. And exactly, I feel like it's really cool to be able to actually share your product with everyone when someone asking you what you do. Like, here,
Yeah,
this is what I do.
totally.
It's much more easier than explaining something very out there. But for both of you, what was the biggest lesson from your full-time corporate chapter of your life? Like one biggest takeaway.
I would say at least one of the biggest values that the company I worked at had, which I think is actually unique to them, so like big hat tip and kudos to that, was how do you show up to work today every day and be extremely impactful for the users that use you, but also have a lot of fun while doing it. And I think the reason is like when you start work, like you're starting life, right? You're no longer in school where your social life and your academics and your day to day is structured for you. Everything you're doing every day is like you choosing how to allocate time for your life, and it's no longer kind of handed to you. And so to get the chance to work on something that has a ton of impact and to also just like have fun and like, be playful and get to run around and meet people while doing it is just like an incredible privilege. And also why like I'm so happy to be working on this with Kiki is because like we are having a lot of fun while doing it. But that's definitely something that maybe the corporate world didn't teach me, but my previous company instilled in me.
That's really good that you had that experience while being in a corporate place. Kiki, what about you?
Mine was definitely, it's going to sound so jargony, but I like, my mind immediately goes here, and it's stakeholder alignment. That really just meaning every decision you make, there are more people beyond yourself who, even if they don't actually have ownership over that decision, they are affected by it, or they have sort of a swaying power in that decision to override it or to not. It's important to get all those different stakeholders bought in every decision that you make. Not because you can't make the decision without them, but actually because the success of that decision rides on their buy-in to whatever that decision is. And so that I think is the biggest thing that I've learned, is that it is incredibly important to bring people under the hood. And there's many ways that you can create alignment, right? You can create alignment by just telling people what it is and saying, hey, this is what it is. You better, you better get behind this. But I think a much better way is actually bringing people along in the journey and in the journey of the decision, showing people, here are the inputs that I'm putting into this decision. Here's the data that's driving this decision. Here are all the options that I could go with. I could go with this option, which you might think is better, but this is why I'm choosing this option. And I know the pros and I know the cons, and I'm still choosing this option. And by doing so, people are bought into the decision, so much so that by the end, whatever end decision it is, they are there and supporting you and supporting that decision because they've seen it through. And I think that's the reason I say that's the biggest thing, is sometimes it's very annoying and it's tedious and it takes a lot of time to do that. But I think it is crucial to making anything successful. And we've found that already with Beny. And I think about that with sort of a community strategy and a community driven brand, is how do I make sure that every single customer is a stakeholder in my business? We only work if I view the whole world as potential customers and stakeholders. And of course, there's going to be people who don't like Beny Yogurt. But of the people who do and who are bought in, how do I make sure that they feel connected to the decisions we make and to the story of our brand? So that way, by the time we have yogurt on the shelf, they feel so connected to us and they feel so bought in, like it's all the right things and that they had a hand in doing it, that they'll want to buy and purchase it.
Honestly, this is a very, very brilliant approach and strategy to this. Just thinking as, yes, the entire world is your potential stakeholder, potential customer. And I also wanted to ask you more about that, because content creation and this idea of building in public seems like a very, very big, also your current chapter that you're working on, but also, as you said, a very integral part of your strategy, because you do want to share everything how it goes so people really feel aligned and very feel part of this. How did you decide on that? And is it natural for you to document this process? But first of all, how did you decide to start documenting and really building in public?
Well, this is, I guess, maybe my like business building in public crush is coming into the public sphere. But Ellie Billie Eats, who started a candy store in the West Village called Lil Sweet Treat, which is a few blocks from my apartment in Lower Manhattan. I had no idea who they were. I was not chronically online before I started content creating, and I was barely online. But I did see that they had a line around the block the first day they opened. I then had to think about what the heck is going on here. And what was happening was she was building in public on her TikTok, and she had, hundreds of thousands of followers. I actually don't quite know, but she had a lot of followers. And it was because she was showing every single decision for literally a year and a half prior to this happening, was really pushing like, this is what I'm doing. I'm building a candy store in the West Village. Here's what color paint should I paint the candy store? And realizing how much that worked. And so that was my first wake up call to realizing we got to do this. There's a lot of other motivations for this as well. We are a perishable good where we need to outpace demand with our supply. Like that is just, we have to be flying off shelves or else we will waste product. And so we knew that we had to be able to create and get our name out there in some way. And we could spend a lot on advertising, or I could spend a lot of my time on creating content and being able to get our word out there in that way and creating reach. And I'll say, like, I am so happy that I've chosen this route. I think it's allowed us to be able to reach out to new partners, to collaborations, to all of those things. And it gives us legitimacy in a way that it wouldn't if we hadn't been creating content. We would just be making yogurt and kind of trying to sell it to strangers on the street. So that's been one thing. The other is I think there's a real opportunity in the market for somebody to really show what it looks like to build a business from 0 to 1. We hear a lot of stories on podcasts about successful businesses. You hear about Chobani's founder. You hear about Siggy's. You hear about, I don't know, X, Y, and Z, those that are already big and who have made it. And there are hundreds and thousands of companies who have never made it to that stage or who won't, but have tried really hard. And like, I have full confidence that we will make it to that stage. But you will see us in that like really difficult struggle between now and then. And I think there's sort of a like shroud around what that looks like and what it takes to do that. And I think there's a real ability for us to be able to sort of show that, unveil that, and show it to a lot of people as well.
Honestly, very beautiful. And I love how you were inspired by the candy shop in the West Village. And honestly, I think modern companies at this point, it feels like they're media companies with a product. It's not just like a product. It is like this whole media component about this, and truly people buying into a brand and people being excited, like, oh, like I saw you build this, or I saw you chose, like your design and this and the name. It creates so much more value, and it is much more important than sales, marketing, any other. Just try to push it. It's just try to create a brand that people actually want to be part of. And I think you're doing
you want to
really
experience
great at this.
that. Yeah, and I think that we also are, like Elan said, like she eats yogurt every day. And like we also are 26 and in this world post-COVID and wanting community and craving being part of something bigger than just our normal corporate selves. And we like are also the target customer in that way. So how do I build content and show things about this brand that is inspiring to me, but also I know will be inspiring to other people? And I think that's like a huge driver of everything that we do too.
And was it natural for you to start creating content the way you started doing it?
I mean, like, I think, like, yeah, and yes and no. It was not natural for me to start creating content. I have to film myself all the time, and it's like incredibly uncomfortable a lot of the times. I was telling Alon, it's like not only is being a founder completely absorbing, but now being a content creator where it's my whole life online, like it's completely absorbing in a new way. And that's not natural. But what I'll say is that I wouldn't be doing this every day if it was really hard and if it felt inauthentic. I think the thing that has made it forgiving in some ways is the style of video that I do, and what I say is like exactly what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling about the day or about the decision. And if I had to try and put on a persona and do a whole thing, like that would be really hard. And so like in a way it's been natural because I think I wouldn't still be doing it if it felt very hard and forced.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure. And honestly, I love it. And I feel like exactly the fact that you've been doing those videos for a few months and you've only been working on this full time for 2 weeks, and already to see the influx of people coming in and being interested in this community started to build, that's already a great indicator that it's working, it's coming together.
Yeah. And that I think it's like I wanted to give myself a little bit of a runway of like, try this while you're still working. Because it would be amazing if day one working on this full time, there was some momentum around it. And so I think it's been great. It's made the first few weeks feel like we've already got a running start because of that. And so I feel really grateful for people who have been really engaged in the community that's been engaged around Beny from the beginning and who continue to be.
For sure. And I think it also probably made the switch much easier, knowing that there is already a little community excited for this to finally be full time. I guess also made the switch easier. But I wanted to ask you about the name. Beny Yogurt. I don't know if this is one of your middle name. How did this come together? Someone's name? How did you come up with the name for it to be what it is?
Sure, yeah. I spent a lot of time reading yogurt textbooks as we are getting started with Beny and learning about the origins and history of yogurt. And in one of the textbooks, it talked about the original word for yogurt is Lebany. It's an ancient Assyrian word, and it has this kind of alternative meaning for life. So kind of associated with, and we loved it, but we were like, okay, what if we cut it and just made it Beny instead of Lebany? And it kind of like hit all the name criteria that we had of being really memorable, really easy to pronounce, really easy to spell. And it sort of stuck after that. But we went through a ton of name iterations before we landed on this. There were like a lot of websites that we bought before we got Beny.
No, that's really cool. So it does have actual meaning connection to the word, yes, and like easy pronounce to write. Yes, truly hits the criteria for the name. So now I want to get into kind of last part of this interview to ask you about your future vision. What are you excited about? What is your vision that you'll look back when we do this interview in 3 to 5 years again? So first of all, what are you most excited about? What are your most exciting moments with Beny so far?
I can go. One of the most exciting moments so far is actually doing these drop sales. So Kiki and I are doing really, really small batch drop sales in New York for kind of like our early supporters here. And getting the text messages of people being like, oh my God, I tried Beny and I'm obsessed with it, or like, this is what I ate it with, like, when can I get more, has been like really fun for us to see. Like, okay, yes, we're building this brand and we're getting a lot of followers and people are excited about what we're building, but when it comes to like the product itself, people also really love it. And that's been like very sort of validating and exciting for us to see. Like, we do have a product that people really, really love outside of just the brand that we're building as well.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Then for the future, now we'll do like a little future vision, what you would like to do. So where do you want Beny to go? What is your big vision? And yeah, where do you want it to be ideally?
I mean, my big picture and my North Star always is that I want to make sure that gut health is more accessible to more people and that they can have sort of a daily, whatever it might be in their routine. It could be yogurt, it could be other dairy products, other cultured products that can have a meaningful impact on their gut every morning. They can choose to do something good for themselves and for their gut, and that we make that much more accessible to more people. And so as long as we sort of hold that vision of food as medicine, like how do we make sure that we are serving the best product, whole foods to people, generally whole, right? We're not just straight milk, but in their form, and that we can enhance their daily routine in a way to make sure that they are taking care of themselves. Like, to me, that's the biggest vision and will carry us through to whatever the future holds for Beny.
The vision is, how do we make gut-friendly, gut-healthy foods really accessible to people around the world.
And now I want to do like a rapid-fire question session where you just answer quick points, then again review them because the answers might be different. So first of all, who inspires you and why?
This is not rapid fire.
This is not that rapid fire, I'm realizing as well, but maybe just like one person who, for example, maybe you were saying like, you were a West Village candy person. That was maybe someone in one way that was inspiring to you. So I didn't mean it to be that deep of a question.
Why is it so deep? Hold on. I'm thinking. Okay, sure. This doesn't have to be deep, right? So the person who inspires me, I live also around the corner from Apollo Bagels, and it is a bagel shop in New York that is sort of viral, and they just opened 3 bagel stores in the past 12 months. Joey, who's one of their owners, he's done this with 2 other partners, and he has just been a master craft at bread since he was 18 years old. And talking to him and really being able to connect with him over his story and knowing that he just cares about serving the best bagel. Doesn't need to be worldwide, doesn't need to be anything else. He just wants New Yorkers to be able to get the best tasting bagel. And I think to me, that's a real inspiration of that can be such a driver. It can lead to so much success, is just the focus that can have, and the real craft in creating something is really inspiring.
What is your word for 2025? Driving word, kind of intention. One word.
Ubiquitous.
One word is being everywhere. I guess that's a phrase, but that's my driving word. Ubiquitous. There you go.
Okay, amazing. How many yogurts have you sold so far as of now?
Probably 150.
Nice. Okay, how big is your team?
2 people.
Yay!
And we
Amazing.
have sourced a lot of knowledge from a lot of different people, but yes, it's us too. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Then, message to your younger self. Just quick message to some, maybe your college self, your baby self, whatever self needs an advice from you.
Nothing is as important as you think it is in the way of your decisions. I was always very indecisive.
I'll do the flip of that, which is you can learn something from every experience, whether it's what you like, what you don't like, how to fail, how to succeed. I think that,
There you go.
For Kiki and I, private equity and crypto and tech feels so far from yogurt, but there's so many things that feel really applicable to what we're doing every day. And so there's actually a ton we can take away from those industries.
Amazing. And last question would be message to your future self. So the future self viewing this video in a few years, or maybe future self, I don't know, retired old future self, whoever also you want to give some advice or a message.
I hope you're surrounded by incredible people and that you've chosen a life filled with inspiring and loving people and community.
I hope you're still learning. I feel like learning is so important at all stages of life, even if you feel wise and old.
I love this. Okay, that was everything I have for you. Thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing the story of Beny, and just your wisdom and, the way your brain works. I'm very excited to share it with everyone.
Follow us at Eat Beny on all social handles. Our website's eatbeny.com.
Follow me at Couchwoman to hear more about our founder journey. And you can find Beny through us. And currently we're just in New York City and we're trying to get the word out and get as many people tasting our yogurt as possible.
Okay, amazing. Yes, you heard that. Follow them everywhere. And I'm very excited to see this journey unfold. And thank you so much again. This was Kiki and Elan from Beny Yogurt. And thank you so much for being here. Let me know if anything particularly stood out to you. And I'll see you in another episode of the Green Tea Bakery. Bye.
Thank you.